Hi everyone, welcome to this really interesting event, Local to Global, presented as a SustFest21 event. It's on nearly the last day is tomorrow of the festival, and this is one of 170 events that we've had. This is a really unique event. It's a first time for all of us involved in it. Special funding from Transition Network for us to do this. We wanted to explore the connections between St Albans and other countries with which many of our residents are very familiar. So I'm delighted today to be announcing Farhat Zia is going to do a presentation on Pakistan, and Rushna Mia will be presenting about Bangladesh and the links with Sustainable St Albans. I've got Jack in my mid-screen, which put me off a bit there. Okay, so we're going to kick off with a short video which we've used to represent the festival, and then we'll be passing over to Farhat for her presentation. So let's start off with our video. Give me one sec. So I've got to share my screen. Thank you for that. Can I ask that anyone who's not speaking can mute themselves, please? Thank you. Okay, over to Farhat, and at the end of these presentations, there will be a lot of time for questions and discussion. Thank you.
Hello, thank you, Gail. Hello, everybody. Just to introduce myself, obviously, Gail has introduced us. My name is Farhat Zia. I'm the co-founder of Hertfordshire Asian Women Association, and I was the former chair of HAWA. I wear different hats, but one of the other hats I wear is I'm trustee for St Albans for Refugee, and I'm currently on the Sus Festival working group, and I have a pleasure and honor. I was the mayoress of St Albans City in 2017 to 2018, and this is when I got really interested in 2017, 2016 about sustainability, and I'm so pleased to be speaking to you today on sustainability and two of the topics which are very close to my heart. And one of the topics is about the planet Earth. I firmly believe the planet Earth is a better place for our future generation. And the second thing is, for the first time, I'm going to link St Albans City with my hometown, Baffa. As you grow old, something tells us that, you know, you go back to your roots. For me, I've been living in St Albans for more than 50 years. My children And my grandchildren are the 4th generation who are living in St Albans. So it'd be really something for me, really good to link where I grew up in Baffa to St Albans. So today my presentation from local to global is about that. Right, today agenda is I'm going to be talking about a little bit about Pakistan. I'm going to be talking about billion tree tsunami. That was Imran Khan initiative about 7-8 years ago when he started. And then I'm going to give a little spotlight on Baffa, just to give you a glimpse of what Baffa looks like, what Baffa people are like, what it's all about. And then I'm going to talk about the plastic problem in our community. Next slide, please. Pakistan. Gail, can you go back one slide? I forgot to tell you that, we need to go back yet. Let me tell you a little bit about Pakistan. Pakistan is the world's 5th most populated nation, home of the world's 2nd largest peak, which is the K2 mountain. After the Everest, we have the big, highest, tallest mountain in the world. We have the oldest civilization in history, which is called Mansehra. The country has a steep in history, politics, culture, drama, speaking over 74 languages, and 5 of the spoken languages are spoken by 10 million people. So in Pakistan, Pakistan is divided into 4 provinces. So each province has a different culture, different language, and different groups. And one of the things, when I was doing my research, I was really surprised that Google rated Pakistan as the first digital country to have the fastest top digital. So it features in top of many adventures backpacking trips. The British Backpacker Society ranking it the world top 20 destination in 2018, which is really interesting because, often we don't hear that side of the story about Pakistan. Next slide, Gail, please. Climate change in Pakistan. Pakistan is the 5th most impacted country by climate change. We have 152 extreme weather events since 2019 to 2018, placing it 3rd in the term of economical damage in the last 20 years. So some of the things I like to talk about, because obviously the climate change is making such a difference. The weather is changing. Pakistan location on the equator is getting hotter. Glaciers, mountains are melting. Land is becoming drier and it's having an impact on crops. Could we have the next slide, please, Gail? Let me talk about the 10 billion tree tsunami. When Imran came in power, when he came in power, this was a few years ago, but prior to that, he engaged in Pakistan into the 10 billion tree tsunami. And he personally took initiative of planting millions and millions of trees. And Pakistan has one of the largest tree planting programs in the world. 1 billion trees would have been planted by the end of this month. Phase 2 is 3.3 billion trees planted by 2023, which has created 85,000 jobs by paying unemployed members of the community who work in trees and nurseries, and looking at and aiming, Pakistan government is aiming to employ another 200,000 people to drive the this initiative forward. And one of the things we done back in 2020, when Imran Khan first became Prime Minister of Pakistan, 2019, we planted a tree here in our local community garden. So we started that initiative locally. So what we've been doing every year, we've been planting one tree. Unfortunately, we couldn't plant a tree last year due to COVID, but we hope to catch up on 14th of August, which is Pakistan Independence Day. So we're going to plant 2 trees this year. One of the things that I have learned from my research that Pakistan is now learning, obviously learning from climate change, the tree that they're planting, they're taking less water, which is really good for environment. Gail, should we move to the next slide, please? I'm just going to tell you here about a tree plantation, which we did with one of the schools in Baffa, Pakistan. I want to tell you a little bit about Ansar Foundation, which is based here in UK, in Luton. And about 6 years ago, when I was in Pakistan, we located an area in Mansehra where we had 215 children who were not going to school in any form or shape. These were the children, this was the community that was moved from an earthquake-affected area to this area. But what the government done, we're talking about developing country, although they gave the people a land to build a house, but there was no mosque. There was no school. So the first initiative Ansar Foundation did was to build a mosque for that community. Then they needed the water. So following year, they did about 70 wells in that particular area, which was excellent. But then when I went out in 2006, we met almost 215 children who were not going to school. And then Ansar Foundation, it was a really big task to build a school, who will run it and everything. They did the homework really, really well, and we were able to raise enough funds for that project particularly. And we now have a school for 215 children who attend that school regularly. Coming back to my tree plantation, last year, toward the end of last year, obviously the world is hit by COVID. The school was closed, but one of the initiatives they did is to go out and plant these trees with the children. So last year, toward the end of last year, because we have to look at the climate, the weather, when we can plant these trees. So toward the end of last year, we planted 100 trees in that particular area, and the children took a part in that. So that's where you see the slide. So in collaboration with the Ansar Foundation, that's what we did last year. So moving on from there, next slide, please. Just tell you, now we're going to move on to my hometown. Just to let you know, just to show you on the map, we are on northwest frontier, northwest our town is. Just to give you a little image of my town, it lies in a valley called Buckle. It's surrounded by a beautiful mountain. It sits in the valley, the town sits in the valley. And over the years, when I was growing up, obviously the population would have been at that time 5,000 or 10,000 people. Currently, the population is 30,000. We have a beautiful river called Firan, which runs in the middle. Just to say, just to give you an idea what the size of Baffa is, similar to Hatfield town. So when I was doing my research, I looked at, which is the closest city near St Albans or town that has that many numbers. So I looked at Hatfield. Hatfield got 39,000 population. So Baffa had 30,000. So I just wanted to give you an idea. Just to give you an idea, what we grow in Baffa is obviously it's an agricultural land. We have maize, we have wheat, rice, sugarcane. And then back in the 80s, we had a lot of tobacco growing in Baffa as well. But now over the years, that has subsided. You know, we're doing more, we're looking at more growing our own vegetables, our own fruit and those sort of things. So that's a little bit about Baffa. Gail, the next clip is about Baffa, just to give you an idea.
So Gail will now share the video.
Right, Gail, I'm sure you will. Gail, could we show next slide of some photograph, please? Right, just to show you, that was the video. Unfortunately, we had a sound problem with that, but just to give you a glimpse of some photograph, which we had a young photographer called Jalal Khan, who's taken some photograph from me. On the left-hand side, you can see the tree that was planted a couple of years ago, and obviously they have grown into mature trees. Then we have on the left-hand side, that's our river, the main river, which flows in Baffa. Then we have the aerial picture at the top hand right, where you can see this picture was taken back in February time. So you can see the difference between the picture on the left, which is taken recently, and the picture on the right. And then we got the picture at the bottom, which is taken from the hilltop. I'm sure you will agree that it's a beautiful place in winter, and it's snow-capped peaks in summer. We get to 25 to 30 degree, making it ideally tourist spot. However, it is not all paradise in mountain. Next slide, please. Right, just to tell you a little bit about this, because my next slide is going to be about plastic problems that we have in Baffa. Just you You understand what Baffa, from my previous slide, the pictures and the video. Just to give you an idea, in the UK, in St Albans, we have a strong commitment to recycling. Lots of bin, all shapes and sizes, taken away at our convenience every fortnight. Imagine we didn't have the recycling bin. Now take away the refuse truck. If you look in that picture, take away the refuse truck. What happened to our waste then? This is the situation in Pakistan and much of it in the developing countries. Open landfill site, pollution is the biggest problem, especially the plastic. Next slide, please. Yeah. Let me just unpack plastic system in Pakistan. In Pakistan, plastic accounts for 65% of total waste. Plastic is cheaper to make and durable. There is no formal waste recycling or reduction program. 55 billion plastic bags are being used in a country with expected annual increase of 15%. So what happens here? Immediate and effective steps are required to curtail the usage of plastic in order to save our country or our planet. You know, when we talk about, when we have these presentations, we shouldn't talk about just one country, we talk about the planet, you know, and what we can do is learn from the developing countries, you know, learn from a good model and try and adapt that in our local country. So just to underline the structure, low civic education. This is what happened. We haven't got the awareness, you know, of the issue of plastic. Low accountability of corporation producing plastic in the first place. People behavior. Success means buying more stuff. Plastic is cheaper. It's everywhere, plastic is. Why should I care? It's not a nuisance for me. It is the government duty to sort out the plastic. And the good news, as we look on there, in Pakistan, the government are taking initiative, but they're only taking initiative in big cities. They're not taking initiative, it's not filtered down to the small communities or small towns. So ban on plastic bag in some cities, such as Islamabad. When I went to my visit there 2 years ago, in a city, you will find 10,000 businesses will find 10,000 rupees, which is equivalent to about £50 if you're using the plastic bag. But then that was happening in cities, and it's not implemented, you know, right through the city. And then plastic with economic value is being sold, you know. So next video. Yeah.
We are here in the mountains. Look at this waterfall, tiny little waterfall turning into a little pond. This waterfall is actually made up of pure water coming right from the mountains. There are so many little rills, streams, which collect there and become a complete river in the downtown. You can clearly observe here, this water is absolutely pure. You can see the purity of the water right here, that is completely impure, unpolluted. But when this water goes downtown, it becomes completely contaminated and impure because of human effort, because of the human beings, human beings' carelessness. A lot of people, our whole population downtown, dump their garbage, their litter, trash, even the washroom lines or the gutter lines are connected to this water. So this natural beauty or naturally pure water is completely impaired because of the humans. So you can clearly here see that this water is absolutely pure, potable. You can even drink this water. It's not an issue for human beings to drink it, or there are no health issues attached to this water. But what I want to draw attention towards a really important issue, that all these natural beauties, all these natural waters are how defiled, are how polluted by human beings. So from there, I will take you towards the next point where you can see all these. So we are down here. It's almost 1 kilometer away from the mountains. Here it reminds me of a Coleridge famous line when he says that water, water everywhere, but not a sip to drink. So exactly this line is fitted here on this water. The same clean water which you saw there up the mountains, look at here. When it reaches to the downtown, when it reaches to the city, look at this pile of garbage, look at this litter. You can easily see this litter is dumped here right into the pure water and had completely contaminated it. It's now impure water. This is human beings' carelessness. This is the public carelessness, and it is not their fault. This is the fault that people are not aware that how they are contaminating, contaminating the natural water, and they have taken all these natural waterfalls, natural beauties, natural environment for granted. Okay, so if you come closer, you can observe here, and you can easily see that the gutter line, this is the pipe which you can see, this is the gutter line. So this pipe is directly connected to the washrooms, and washroom water and the toilet water is here mixed up with this pure water, and it becomes a completely impure water, not fit for any use. So this water, if we use this water for cultivation, so we have polluted crops. If we cannot.
The audio on this part of the video isn't great, but Farhat is going to speak over it while you can see it visually in the background.
Okay, and that was Waleed Arif. He recorded that video for us because I spoke to him. I wanted to look at the river, how we can in future one day maybe try to clean the river and have a less pollution in there. So some of the things that in that video we couldn't hear at point, you know, which is we clearly seen a lot of rubbish, garbage in that river. Litter is thrown everywhere. It's like I did read it somewhere that we got so much litter in Pakistan that you can build 2 K2 mountains out of it. That's how much litter rubbish we got. One of the questions Waleed asked in that video is who is responsible? So that's the question we need to ask, you know, is the people, it's us who are polluting the environment. It's not, you know, anybody else. So how do we educate people? So my next slide will go on. Could we have next slide, please? The next slide is tackling plastic pollution in Baffa. What I aim to do is educate and raise awareness of the issue of plastic, raising education and awareness of plastic issue within school. So we have secured the right to show the plastic ocean film in the 2 of the local school, because what I want to do is educate the young generation about the plastic. And what we hope to do is carry out Sustainable Planet workshop to educate the community in 3 R. The 3 R stand for reduce, reuse, recycle. The long-term project is going to be cleaning the river initiative, mobilizing the community group to take ownership of the environment and take part in litter picking and cleaning the river. This is where we learn from Sustainable St Albans, because they've been doing this work in local community here in St Albans for many years. So even if we can get 1 meter, because when somebody asked me, how are you going to clean that river? I said, I'm not taking that big responsibility, but even if I can clean 1 meter of that land and teach 1 child to not to throw the plastic in the river, that's an achievement. And work with local groups, establish recycling plants and facilities. That's going to be a big one. So lastly, and looking at longer term, how can we build circular economy here? Can we set a community-driven recycling plant and facility, working with local government or community groups? Can we do mid-term or long-term to address this problem and stop from happening again? I love to say we can clean the river and go home, but say 5 or 10 years later, who's going to do it? So we got to produce some sort of thing that is ongoing. Thank you so much. This was my little presentation. I hope you learned something about where I'm from. I'd just like to, before I go, my colleague Rashna presentation, I'd just like to say a special thanks to Dr. Anwar Khurshid, Walid Arif, you saw him in the video, and the young lad who done all the video recording and photograph, his name was Jalal Khan. And last but least, Kashif Production, he's on, you can see the Baffa film on YouTube. It's really good quality, and he's given me permission to use this. I'd like to thank Gail and Dan and Trilla for hosting us today and facilitating the whole event. And I will now pass you over back to Gail.
Thank you, Farhat.
Yes, okay.
I hope that you've all learned as much as I have through watching Farhat's presentation. This whole event has been a huge learning curve for all of us involved in it. And it's so exciting to see Farhat's inspiration and enthusiasm for carrying on this work in Baffa. And it's going to be so exciting to see the results as they move forward. We will have time for questions at the end. I hope you're keeping your notes and have some ideas to comment. We're going to move on now and look at Bangladesh. So I'm going to introduce Rushna Mia with her presentation. Thank you, Rushna.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Sustainable St Albans SustFest21 Local to Global. So thank you, Farhat. So that was very informative and a lovely, lovely presentation. It's lovely to see your hometown of Baffa. Today I'll be talking about Bangladesh. So just bear with me 1 second. Right. Okay. Right, okay, so my hometown. There we are, okay. So I'll just start off with by telling you a bit about myself. So I'm Rushna Mia. I'm the chair of Hertfordshire Asian Women's Association and co-founder. I have worked as a housing officer for the past 17 or so years, and I've just recently commenced a new job as the BAME COVID Recovery Development Officer with CDA Herts. I'm also a COVID information champion, a qualified coach, and a qualified interpreter in the Sylheti language. I'm also a mother of 4 and a carer. I have lived in St Albans for approximately 27 years now, and so it's you know, been for me my hometown for a number of years now. Just going on to Bangladesh, where I come from. I came to this country when I was about 4 years old, and lived in Birmingham, and then moved to St Albans. So Bangladesh, just tell you a bit of background. To Bangladesh. Bangladesh to the east of India on the Bay of Bengal is a South Asian country marked by lush greenery and many waterways. Its Padma, the Ganges, Meghna and Jamuna rivers create fertile plains, and travel by boat is common. On the southern coast, the Sundarban and enormous mangrove forest shared with eastern India is home to the Royal Bengal tigers. So the capital of Bangladesh is Dhaka, and sorry, I'm just gonna move my slide a little bit. Okay, so It's a small, where I come from is, it's located in Sylhet. It's a small village called Gushgaon. It's a 5-hour drive from Dhaka, and 30 minutes or so from the main city of Sylhet, town of Sylhet, sorry. It's famous for, Sylhet is famous for its tea gardens, and it's also linked with St Albans as a training city. Oh, can we have the next slide, please? Thank you. Okay, so in this picture, as you can see, I've got a picture of some of the beautiful places in and around St Albans. We've got the Aquarium Park, the Hartwood Forest, River Wear Bridge, and on the bottom you can see the Surma River, which is in Sylhet, and the Sri Mangal Tea Gardens. Now, the Bangladesh is known for its greenery with hundreds of serpentine rivers, the crystal clear water, and the beautiful cascades of the tea gardens. And when I walk out, go out for walks in and around St Albans to these places, it reminds me of my village back in Bangladesh. It resonates, to the greenery in Sylhet, like the Surma River and the Sri Mangal garden in Sylhet. Next slide, please. Okay, so Bangladesh is home to approximately 160 million people and is one of the most vulnerable countries in the world to climate change impacts. Some of the stats relating to the climate change are as you can see on the screen, it says 4.7 million people were displaced due to disasters between 2008 and 2014. 25% of the population live in coastal areas vulnerable to cyclones, and 60% of the country is prone to flooding. So as you can see, and you probably hear in the media as well, most of the years there is flooding that happens in Bangladesh, and the consequences we're going to talk about. Next slide, please. Okay. Right, okay. So the causes of floods in Bangladesh. Now, so Bangladesh is located at the tail end of the fragile delta formed by the Ganges, Brahmaputra, and the Meghna rivers. And more exposed to tropical cyclones than any other countries. It also experiences about 2/5 of the world's storm surges every year. Bangladesh's economy is more at risk to climate change than any other country. Some of the causes of flood are low-lying land, the meltwater from the Himalayas, and the heavy monsoon rain that we get every year. 2/3 of the country is less than 5 meters above the sea level, and floods increasingly inundate homes and destroys farm production that are closes the business and shuts down public infrastructure. So as you can see from the picture, the pictures are here, the effects of the flood are devastating for families, and it takes a long time to rebuild their lives, after the floods. Luckily, in my dad's village, where it is situated, it's on a slightly higher land. Therefore, the floods do not affect that particular village as much as any other areas. The water gets on just about sort of the door level, but it doesn't actually sort of, it's not as devastating as some of the pictures that you can see here. Next slide, please. So what is Bangladesh doing about the flooding? Bangladesh has invested more than $10 billion in climate change action, enhancing the capacity of the communities to increase the resilience, increasing the capacity of the government agency to respond to emergencies by strengthening the river embankments and the coastal polders. So that's the low-lying tracts of the lands vulnerable to flooding. They're also building emergency cyclone shelters, resilient homes, and adapting rural household farming systems. So some of the things are like, building embankments, emergency planning. They're looking at building the dams as well and reducing the deforestation. They've got a 2 billion embankment project which is underway to protect the nation's coastal residents from tidal and storm surges, and the sea levels, obviously, as they're rising. But many of these long-term responses are difficult to pay for and maintain. They're not always as successful and don't always help enough people. Next slide, please. So we're just going to go and talk about plastic waste, and Farhad has touched upon that. And plastic waste is not just a problem and an issue in Pakistan or Bangladesh. It is actually a global issue. And actually, one of the facts that I forgot to mention is that Bangladesh used to be called East Pakistan. So it relates to Pakistan as the presentation that Farhad did earlier. So the plastic waste, bear with me. Next slide, please. So what are the concerns? So worldwide concerns, as I mentioned, it is a worldwide global problem, with 100 million tons of plastic being dumped into the ocean annually, and 87,000 tons of single-use plastic, including plastic bags, bottles, cups, plates, straws. They're all thrown away in Bangladesh. So you can see that there is a big issue there. And what are we going to do to tackle some of these issues? And during the COVID-19 pandemic, the use of single plastic has increased many folds. Around 96% of the people worldwide are using different types of PPE, the personal protection equipment, ranging from disposable masks and face shields, which are directly being disposed to environment and cause plastic pollution. These large amounts of plastic waste can cause serious health and environmental hazards. The marine environment is largely affected by the plastic waste, mainly the microplastics as they enter the food chain, and causing some of the fatality of animals from indigestion and stomach bloating. So in 2002, Bangladesh was one of the first countries to ban the use of plastic and polythene bags in an effort to stop them collecting in waterways and on land, although the ban had little success. Next slide, please. So in 2005, Anne Main went to Bangladesh, where she was the obviously the MP, Conservative MP at that time, and she took delegates to Sylhet in Bangladesh and helped clean up the cleanup process in the Surma River, which is in Sylhet. And the group helped to pick up litter and plastic waste from the banks of the Surma River. And Anne Main obviously mentioned that plastic pollution is a major problem globally, and developing nations like Bangladesh are badly impacted. So there are efforts still being continued to try and clean up the Surma River, but unfortunately it's difficult because obviously there needs to be more awareness about these issues, and more education as well. Next slide, please. Oops, sorry, I haven't got this slide on. Right. If we go on to the next slide, please. I've talked about that one. Can we go on to the next slide, please? Thank you. Right, okay, so one of the solutions to the plastic ban was to make bags from the jute plant fiber in Bangladesh. So as the countries, so about 410 million polythene bags are used in the capital Dhaka alone each month. So in some of the waterways, such as the Buriganga River, a 3-meter deep layer of discarded bags have built up. So as a result, Bangladesh, one of the Bangladesh scientists has made a low-cost biodegradable bags, which looks similar to the plastic bags, but they're made from the polymer material from the jute plant. The new biodegradable bags should help ease the problem, according to the former Deputy General. The jute polymer bags are totally biodegradable, decomposable, so it should decompose within 3 months, they say. So they are being implemented in some areas, but unfortunately, the plastic bags still continue in some of the cities and some of the towns as well. So the jute bags, we're getting the Hessian bags as well being built, as well as being made, as well as the polymer bags. So these are being rolled out within Sylhet and other parts of Bangladesh. Next slide, please. So these are some of the bags that I just talked about, the polymer bags. So they do look like the plastic bags, but these are the biodegradable ones. And this is what the government is trying to sort of encourage people to use, rather than use the plastic ones that, you know, damage and clog up the riverbanks. And also the Hessian bags as well. Thank you. Next slide, please. So now I'm going to show you a video of Sylhet and my hometown in Bangladesh, in Sylhet. You'll see the scenery of Sylhet, and then you will see the my home village. You can see some of the lovely the mosque. There's a mosque and a school, primary school there. And also some of the effects of the plastic waste that has been thrown into these lovely areas, which makes it really, you know, prone to pollution, etc. And towards the end, you will see, we're going to go on to talk about the solar panels. So you will see some of that being implemented as well. Thank you. Thank you. So that was just a clip from Sylhet and showing my hometown of Gushka. So next slide, please. So now we're just going to go on talking about solar panels and solar energy, which is another initiative Bangladesh has taken. At the end of that video, there were some solar panels there that you saw. So just going to talk about the solar panels. Right, so Bangladesh has one of the largest domestic solar energy programs. And solar energy is really helping to sort of change lives for 20 million people in the rural, especially in the rural areas, because they will now, because as a result of the solar panels, they are able to sort of carry on after dark and study or go out or run their businesses, and that has really had a big impact. The government are also one of the initiatives is to give free solar panels, as you saw on some of the roofs of those in that video, to the rural areas, to poor families, so that they can benefit from that as well. The off-grid solar home systems are improving living standards for the family in the rural areas of Bangladesh. So next slide, please. And so solar panels provide an affordable solution to the lack of access to electricity. The small-scale solar home systems now provide electricity to more than 4 million households and about 20 million, as I mentioned, in the rural areas, which is like about 1/8 of the country's population. So currently, Bangladesh's economy is booming with an average growth rate of 8%. Demand for electricity is rising fast. The country, one of the remote island in the Bay of Bengal, which is called Mansehra, the solar panel, the mini grid, has transformed some of the lives there. For example, Lota Khatun, she runs a sewing business from her home on the island, and having access to the electricity, it means that she can work at night while her children are asleep, so she can earn an income for herself as well. So it's empowering the women to, obviously be able to work as well. The solar panels help women to run some of classes as well in the sheds, or to improve their literacy. So lots can happen as a result of this, and a lot of positive things are coming out. The power generated by the solar pump serves various other needs of the community, like water purification and brick making, and things like that as well. Right. Bangladesh is also working to decarbonize and opening major solar park, in addition to expanding the use of the whole solar home systems. So next slide, please. So coming back to St Albans, obviously, as I mentioned before, so coming back to St Albans, obviously living in St Albans, we do a lot of recycling, and such as our bins, as Farah mentioned before as well. It's important for us to educate our own children as well, and teach our children, because it's not just an issue for us, it's a global issue, and an issue that will continue. And it's important for our future generations to be aware of these issues and tackle climate change. And where better to start than start at home. So what are we doing in St Albans to reduce our carbon footprint? We're trying to get rid of the disposable cups and reuse cups in shops. There's also the Solar Street project in St Albans, which is a community-based project where they can get discounted solar installations. We've also moved away from the lighting to LED street lights. And what have we achieved so far in St Albans? All electric vehicle car club, some of the things that we are hoping to achieve. Car club coming to St Albans in spring 2021, so that's probably already happening. Energy audits of our largest buildings and solar PV surveys now complete. Solar street schemes, as I mentioned, has installed solar PV to 14 households in 4 months. Rewilding scheme has commenced in partnership with Herts and Middlesex Wildlife Trust. And electric vehicle charging is to be installed in Westminster Lodge and Harpenden Leisure Centre redevelopment. And some of the following organisations that have pledged to support the strategy. So I've taken some of this from our St Albans District Council website. Is committed our strategy by committing to do all they can to become carbon neutral by 2030 and championing sustainability across the community. So that's Sustainable St Albans. So Sustainable St Albans has done so much and is continued to do so much over the years as well. The Plastic Free St Albans, the St Albans Friends of the Earth, and Sandridge Parish Council as well. Thank you. So the next slide, please. Right, so I'm just going to finish off with a beautiful poem that has been written and recited by my niece, who has given her personal reflection on her homeland in Bangladesh and her home in the UK. And it's just wanted to sort of share this with you, and yeah, hope you enjoy it. Can I have?
I'm from a place that's lush and green, a country you may not have heard of or seen, only in the news when there's flood or monsoon. But did you know there's more to this land? I'll tell you very soon. The clothes that you wear from Primark and Gap is from the place that you may have just seen on a map. When you spend your afternoon sipping a cup of tea in your favorite porcelain, do you know the garden it came from? The far, far land that's ever so green. The words that you use in your daily conversation, like pajama and bungalow, has its origin from my Bengali nation. It just took one invitation from Her Majesty the Queen for my forefathers to leave the land of the lush green. For a better life they worked in the factories, railway lines and the mills, living behind the land where rivers flow beneath the hills. Despite speak little English, this foreign land became our home, leaving behind all that we had ever known. The warm heat of the scorching sun, the smell of spices flowing the streets, the sweet seller calling us with the tasty treats, the tall mango trees giving us shade, whilst eating the sour chutneys my mum had made. Yes, my journey is long and tiresome. The daggers of antipathy and racism hasn't left me unscathed. But I have been looked at as though I'm an alien or a stranger, struggling in a foreign land, battling to be accepted, to make it all worth it. I do miss the land of the lush green, where rivers flow beneath our feet. Our home, we certainly called it. This Great Britain gave us hope and many chances. Education, friends, jobs, equality, opportunity, and liberty. We accepted this new life wholeheartedly. I brought with me my customs, my culture and tradition. The smells of spices in our flow, the streets of London, the curry houses built by my forefathers. Without this culture, would you have known about the deep colors of henna saris and kameez? Yes, it traveled with me from the land of the lush green. We have become lawyers, accountants and doctors, entrepreneurs, athletes and barristers. Accept me for who I was and whom I have become. Because living with two cultures isn't easy for some. To come to a foreign land and conform takes a lot of courage and strength. But this Great Britain has become my home, and this is where I will take my last breath.
So that's the end of my presentation. I would just like to say thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoyed the presentations. And I would like to say thank you to Fakhrul Khan, Masumuddin.
I'm from a place
sending me the videos from my home village, and to Nasima, my niece, who made the last video there, giving her reflections of her both homelands. Also to SustFest St Albans for giving us the opportunity to be able to present this to you today. And thank you to you all for attending. I would also like to say that the small amount of funding that Farhat and I received for this project, we would like to donate to our native countries, to the tree project and the cleanup projects in Bangladesh and Pakistan. and to give a little bit to those who contributed in making the videos. Just to finish off, in our little village, we have a group of youths that are taking on some of this cleanup project to look after the villages near my father's hometown. So thank you for listening. I hope you enjoy the rest of the weekend. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Rushna. That was a lovely end with the most beautiful poem from your niece. It's a fabulous way to bring the presentations to an end. And I know that you, as well as Farhat, worked really hard on bringing that presentation together in terms of the research that this project stimulated. And I hope that it stimulated a lot of thinking here today in this session. And I'd like to open it up to ask if anybody has any comments or thoughts, if you could share them on the chat, or Dan, how should we do this? Should people raise their hands if they want to say something? We'd love to hear from you.
They can write in the chat, or if they, I see Iqbal has raised his hand. So Iqbal, do you want to say something?
Please unmute yourself, Iqbal. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for Gail and the participant, and also the audience. Sorry,
we can hear you.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yep.
So I think I'm very grateful for the Sustainable St Albans Festival to bring this together and to share the concerns we have here in St Albans, and also taking it from here, from local to global. So that's a wonderful achievement for this year. My question would be is how do we go from here? What is it that the Sustainable St Albans, linking St Albans with the international community in Baffa or in Sylhet, and Rushna just mentioned about the youth working on the ground to be helped or to be given some support. So how would we link this with our future work? And that is an open discussion. And I need to ask, Fahazia has mentioned the 100 trees you have planted working with the school. What is your plan? How do you see, how would you do your next thing, what you will be doing? Or the Sustainable St Albans can work together. This Gail can answer it, Farhat can answer it, and Rushna can answer it.
Well, it's great to hear that people want to move so fast straight after this wonderful presentation. And Iqbal, I'm sure there are ways we can move forward, and Farhat's got some ideas. Do remember that Sustainable St Albans is made up of a bunch of volunteers. So you are one of those volunteers now. If you're joining in this session, then the work is open to you and others to do. And we can certainly move forward with further talks about what we can do together. Farhat, would you like to say something about the tree planting?
What we would like to do is the small donation we will get from SUS towards our project. What I like to use it is to plant some more trees, because in my presentation I did say that we will be contributing towards 100 trees, and Archivist Trust is another organization that is be working in Baffa. I will work with SustFest21 and Archivist Trust in Baffa about tree plantation and about showing the plastic ocean film in 2 of the Baffa schools. Unfortunately, due to COVID, the schools in Baffa were closed. My original plan was to show the film during this festival period, but because of the license difficulties, we had to postpone that and wait to hear from the 2 schools in Pakistan when we be able to show the film. So that's going to be starting point about educating young children about what damage plastic does to the environment. So that's going to be my second one. And then on a long term, we got to look at how we can clean the river. That's going to be a very long-term project. But, you know, through the SUS Festival, I met expertise who are doing some work cleaning the river here in UK. So what we can do is just learn, because I won't be able to go out there and clean the river myself. So I've got to mobilize the community there. So that's what I hope to do.
A big job and a great ambition, and I'm sure we'll be supporting you moving forward, Farhat, with this.
Can I just add to that quickly? As Farhat said, you know, the presentation, the movie we're going to show in Pakistan and Bangladesh, due to COVID, we weren't unable to do that. But also, as Farhat rightly said, we need to educate the youngsters. Now, we've got a group of youngsters, as I mentioned, in our hometown, but it's about, if we can educate the, you know, in schools, in local schools all around Bangladesh and Sydney about sustainability, about climate change, then that will empower them and, you know, encourage them to take action, because they are the next generation. And if they don't protect their country, who else is going to? You know, it's not just about government initiatives, it's about taking that initiative locally as well. So that's one of the things that I'll be working with some of the youth group in my hometown in Bangladesh, to sort of encourage them to, you know, go around other schools and do maybe a presentation and talk about climate change and what they're doing in our village.
That sounds really positive, Rushna. And one of the ways Sustainable St Albans can help, of course, is by helping you raise awareness about the work that you're doing here in St Albans. I wonder, I'd like to hear from, we have a few comments in the chat from the audience saying they enjoyed the presentation. And I wonder if people are able to share anything new that they learnt today, or any thoughts that were stimulated by the presentation. Is there anybody who could share?
See, Marianne's got her hand up. Do you want to
Marianne?
Unmute yourself, Marianne.
Yeah, I couldn't do it fancy like Iqbal did, sorry. Yeah, what I was thinking that suddenly struck me was about the plastic bags and the decomposable alternatives. My daughter had some groceries sent here a few days ago from the co-op, and the co-op are now using bags that are decomposable. So your stuff arrives, it's decomposable. How do we learn from the people in Bangladesh and Pakistan to get everybody doing that here? Because you go into shops, they're meant to be bags for life, people are using them for one use only. If you have a meal delivered from, you know, a takeaway restaurant, it arrives 9 times out of 10 in a plastic bag to stop it dripping. How do we propose to push our businesses to use sustainable methods and bags? Plastic bags drive me mad, and looking at the issues that are obviously coming up in Bangladesh and Pakistan, we've got the same issues here. So how do we learn from you, who seem to have been pushing it forward more successfully than we have here so far?
Any comments from Rushna and Farhat on that one?
Rushna, can you go on that one first?
Unmute yourself, Rushna.
Sorry, talking away there. I think it's about, again, about, you know, raising awareness. I think we started in St Albans with the biodegradable, you know, for the food waste. And St Albans Council did start off with that, but I don't know what happened afterwards. We were told that we can use any plastic bags. So I think, you know, maybe going back to the local council and our locality to say, you know, how can we get back the biodegradable bags, you know, the Hessian bags that we can use instead of the plastic, you know, bags. So if we can start our own initiatives, you know, by starting, as I say, educating ourselves first and promoting it within, and slowly, you know, push that out, I think, and get our local community to participate. Because I don't know about the government initiative, but as I say, you know, it's not just the onus on government, it's onus on us all to do something about it.
That's right. I think that Hillary says online on the chat that she's surprised how much plastic is building up even in the rural areas. And it is shocking when you see it. But remember that, of course, as both, I can't remember Farhat or Rushna pointed, I think it was Farhat pointed out that we have very good recycling facilities here in the UK. And what's happening is we have huge amounts of plastic waste being produced here. Large amounts being produced by that company in Glasgow that produces plastics out of the gas, INEOS, out of the gas that comes from the US. So we have large amounts of plastic being produced here, and of course we've been dumping it, as we know, in Turkey, and it's just about starting to come back to our shores. It's still a mystery where the plastic waste goes to in the UK. I think someone somewhere is digging a very, very large hole in the middle of the countryside. So yes, it's surprising and awful to see it building up so quickly over in the rural areas in Pakistan and Bangladesh, but it's because of the lack of infrastructure in terms of the recycling facilities. Catherine has
a question from Catherine.
Yeah, Catherine has an interesting thought. She's thinking about the issue of climate change. Here in the UK, we often see it as a problem for tomorrow, not a problem for today. But it's quite clear from the presentations that in countries which are being devastated, particularly with flooding, with the meltwater from the hills and from the glaciers, that it seems like it's a problem for today. Is it seen that way in Bangladesh and Pakistan?
Right, coming on to this, Gail, Imran Khan has just announced in Pakistan that he's put the climate change agenda at the forefront of Pakistan government, because, you know, Pakistan, obviously, as you know, we had a lot of political, economical issues, but he's doing things, I feel that he's doing the things in a right way. He's bringing the climate change initiative right to the forefront, and it's going to take a while. Looking back at St Albans, look, we only been recycling in the last 6 years more and more plastic, because as before, we were not educated enough. You know, we used to put everything in, do you remember, in just one bin. And it's in last couple of years, I know that, you know, the more we learnt about the damage it does to environment, I'm one of those person that I like to recycle everything. You know, I take it, and that was from my learning point. Going back to our community here in St Albans through our Tiffin Club project, we have held a couple of workshops within our project to teach the ladies about recycling. We had St Albans District Council advisor coming in and telling us, because sometimes with us, our ladies or our community, it's either the language or the culture that which creates that barrier. So what we did is we asked people who were directly employed by St Albans District Council, whose job was to come and tell us a little bit more about how do we recycle what. Do you remember at the beginning, we were not sure what goes in which bin? It took us a while. So all those changes need to be often, yes, we have a literature, but sometimes it's good to have someone coming in and talking to you directly and showing you, right, this bin is for this is bin for that. And that's how we did with Our Lady here at local communities.
And we also have to remember that very little plastic is actually recycled. What's happening is that we're collecting it separately. And I think we need to reframe the way we think about plastic waste in that way. I wonder, Rushna, if you can add anything further to Catherine's point that was around the whether climate change is seen as a contemporary problem, as a problem for today, particularly in terms of extreme weather and flooding.
Absolutely. In Bangladesh, it is, you know, it is seen as a problem, yesterday's problem, because it's the, you know, you can see visually the devastating impact it's having on Bangladesh. Certain parts of Bangladesh, you know, are being wiped away as a result of this. And that's why it's very concerning. And the government are stepping up and they want to tackle this. You know, I think Sheikh Hasina, who's the Prime Minister, she is urging all countries to raise their climate ambitions and submit new emission reductions targets by 2030, because, you know, it's not just Bangladesh. The effects and the, whatever is happening globally is affecting Bangladesh and other countries as well, and it's increasing the flooding. And and as you know, Bangladesh it's a very low level, so it's not very high from the water level. So, and that's increasing every year. So there is grave concern in Bangladesh about the flooding and the climate change issues.
Catherine, do you have anything you'd like to add to those comments and thoughts about the relationship between the UK and countries like Pakistan and Bangladesh?
I didn't. Only that I wish that the urgency. I wish that here, in the kind of country that's producing the majority of the emissions, that we could share the urgency that's being felt by countries that are being affected by them.
Thank you. And also, I mean, it makes me feel it's countries like ourselves in the Western industrialized areas that have produced most of the carbon emissions that are creating the atmospheric conditions for global warming, which is impacting on countries like Pakistan and Bangladesh the most and first. Are there any other points coming up on the chat? More around another question around a reward system for people who don't use plastic bags in Pakistan or Bangladesh. I understand from talking to both Rushna and Farhat that the plastic bag situation in terms of Bangladesh and Pakistan is that there have been attempts to ban bags, but that they are have not always been as successful as they wanted to be. I think Farhat, you mentioned it was in the capital, but not elsewhere. Or was it?
I think I mentioned Gail, in Dhaka, but it's not just in Dhaka, it's everywhere, in Sylhet even. When they go to the bazaars, they're picking up the plastic bags, but it's the way they're disposing of it. They're just not disposing of it in a bin. It's going into the rivers, it's going into, land, going onto the sort of agriculture land, where then they can't use the land to, grow, and it's affecting trees, etc., and animals, fish, all sorts. So I think it's about educating and raising awareness. And also, I don't know whether a reward system would actually work, but I think first and foremost, if you can educate and also maybe put out bins in certain areas, to put the bags in, maybe that might help as well.
Thank you, Rushna. I think very often plastic waste is a very visual picture of something devastating that human beings are doing to our planet, whereas things like the impact of climate change and global warming is often not seen quite as clearly. I wondered whether there was any awareness. Well, of course there is awareness. How much awareness there is for people living in communities like your two villages, that is there awareness about how countries like the industrialized countries have been increasing CO2 emissions that is actually impacting on things like flooding? Do you think there is awareness?
Can I answer that? I don't think there is enough awareness, because again, we have to, looking at the plastic, we need to educate the community itself to take the ownership, and we got to do how we learned here in developing country, what damage it does. And then it's also about the whole environment issue that there needs to be more broader information coming from the government itself, because what happened is stay in cities, yes, there's 10,000 rupees fine if you use any businesses that use plastic bags. But when you look at a small town like our Sedinar, there's no knowledge of that, They just say, oh, take a plastic bag, don't worry, But there's no emphasis on how you should dispose that plastic bag. That is really important to educate. If we can educate 10 school children to teach them that this plastic does not dissolve for the next 25 years in the earth that you throw. And if one child does not use that carrier bag, or, you know, we can have some sort of refilling. I think it was Catherine, or was it Marion, who suggested that, how about using something, you know, instead of plastic bottle, maybe we can refill. That's something we need to go back to, you know, it needs to be revisited.
Thank you, Farhat. I see that the idea of linking up schools from St Albans to Pakistan, the schools particularly you mentioned, Farhat, that you were working with there, is seen as a very positive idea. And I know that Caroline Penn is working with the schools group in Sustainable St Albans. Does that sound something exciting project to think about?
That'd be an excellent initiative, you know, because to start something like this.
Caroline,
we can exchange ideas.
Yes, I was thinking it would be useful to mention it at the next schools networking meeting, and also to have a link on the website. If you're able to edit your presentations to include the part of it that talks about those projects, Farhat, on showing the film on plastic, and on the tree planting particularly, that would be good, I think.
I'm sure we can manage to do editing of those. Yeah.
But on the wider issue, and also I think it would springboard onto the wider issues of actually the acute problem of climate change at the moment in Bangladesh in particular, and Pakistan.
What a fantastic project it would be to link up two schools. It would be wonderful, wouldn't it? A way of young people communicating with each other in that way across the globe.
And exchanging ideas, I guess, you know, that'd be good.
It really would be. Let's keep that in mind and see how we can take that forward. Just one other comment is from Anjam Mahmood, who is online from Dubai today, and mentions that plastic bags are being used very heavily there, but recycling's only just started, it looks like. I don't know, Anjam, if you wanted to say anything to the group, because for many of us, Dubai is a land we don't know much about. Is there anything you want to say? Is Anjam being shy or hands up? Okay, Anjam's not there. Okay, somebody else, Hilary Tyrrell mentioned the possibility of burning plastic. Now, I don't know if there's anyone else here on this call who knows a bit about that, but there's quite a big campaign against the idea of burning plastic because it's very toxic. In some countries, plastic is actually used as a fuel. It actually comes from oil and it has burning capacity, and it's used as a fuel and it poisons people's lungs. And so the idea of, we can send some links out afterwards if somebody can do a note, and I will show you a link to some of the evidence about burning plastic. But Marianne, you want to say about that?
Yeah, it was a news program I was watching last week, interestingly, and it appears that the burning of the rubbish, I'm not sure if it's just plastic or it's more than that, they're talking about making new plants somewhere near the Thames Gateway. But they also mentioned that, yes, they make the electricity, but what they have never done in the past is actually retain the heat that comes with it, which can be used for domestic heating purposes. How they go about the effects of what gas is given off. I think they use controlled and sealed burners, but it made me recall that probably 35, 40 years ago, I was aware they were doing this in Holland, that they were taking rubbish, they were burning it to generate electricity, but then they were actually using the heat that was generated, which before was just going up into the air, to actually heat homes. And Amsterdam has a lot of pensioner villages that were completely free to heat in the winter because they were using this excess heat that was just going up into the atmosphere. So I don't know, are there ways of containing the toxic byproducts, possibly using them for something else?
Already in St Albans, we burn our food waste. So when you bother to take your food and put it in your food waste bins, you're not only just keeping it out of general waste, it's burnt to make electricity. It's sold to the grid. So it's already happening here in St Albans on food waste. Did you hear about the Ban the Incinerator campaign? I think it was in Hoddesdon. There was plans to build a big waste incinerator. It was actually stopped. It was the government planning, in the end, appeal actually stopped the incinerator. There's a lot of dangerous issues with it. But you're right, it does happen. I do know that in some places in India, it's seen as a very cheap way of getting rid of some of the polluted waste, but it's not something I personally would like to recommend. As I say, we'll look for links and send you out. Rushna.
Yeah, can I just add, as I mentioned before, in terms of COVID, with the COVID, we've had extra PPEs, plastics, the visors. So all of that, how are we disposing of that is, in this country and in Bangladesh and any, the third world countries. And most likely the third world countries, it would go into like the, landfills and the drains and, all of these systems. Few years ago, I went to the Maldives and it was completely plastic free. The whole island was plastic free. They had no plastic at all there. Their cutlery, everything was just like, no plastic. So if they can do it, why can't other countries do it? My question is, and how can we follow suit? What are they doing right that we can learn from? So that's something maybe to research as well in the future. But I thought it was fascinating how clean and beautiful their countries were and how they managed. If they can manage without use of plastics, why can't we?
Okay, thank you very much. We're going to have to close up now. Just a couple of words to say. Anjam Mahmood, I'm sorry, you said you would join us from Dubai. I'm sure we'd love you just to say a quick word, but we're going to have to close the session. Catherine has pointed out that the food waste is anaerobic digestion rather than burning. That may be the case here. And just because we missed out on you, would you like to just say hi from Dubai for us, please?
Yes, hello.
Hi.
I'm Anjam. I used
say one word about plastic there in Dubai.
So basically, it is very heavily used in the supermarkets. And I've actually, when I came here, I bought my, the Tesco's jute bags, those recycle ones. I use them. So every time when I go, and but like I said, it all depends on the individual. It's up to them. They need to make the change. It won't happen unless each individual makes a change. So they have started recycling. They've been starting it for a good couple of years now. But then again, like I said, because there's so many expatriates here and it's all about education.
Thank you very much, Anjam. It's really interesting, quite exciting to hear you all the way from Dubai. One last comment is from Jack Easton, who tells us that we have to be careful about thinking about recycling with plastic because actually it's a larger problem than that. Perhaps what we should be looking at is legislation to forbid the use of any non-recyclable plastic because the problem starts with the manufacturers. And don't forget, the manufacturer of plastic plastic comes from fossil fuels. It comes from gas and it comes from oil. So when you hear the phrase fossil free or stop the fossil fuels being dug out of the ground, this applies to plastics, not just to burning coal and oil for manufacturing. We're going to have to say goodbye to everybody. Thank you so much for the work that Farhat and Rushna put into these presentations and their loved ones who supported them all the way through it. Thank you for Dan and for Talia for helping us with our technical work today. And thank you all for joining in one of the Sustainability Festival events. There's still one more day to go. There's a fantastic market tomorrow in St Albans, a sustainable market with, I think we've got again about 70 stalls. So we look forward to seeing you. Just check the programme out on SustFest.org to see a couple more sessions today and tomorrow. And one after my own heart, if you're in Sopwell, the Marlborough Pavilion, which is being built, the new community building being built in Sopwell, the plans are being shown tomorrow with a focus on the environmental aspects of them. So that's over in the Marlborough Pavilion in Sopwell tomorrow at 12, if you want to nip away from the market for a quick hour. Anyway, thank you all very, very much for today. I'm going to say goodbye now. I hope you've enjoyed it. And please, can you do the survey? Hold on 1 second. I've got the link here. Yeah. Oh, where's the survey? Survey Monkey. Here we go. Please just link into this. I'm putting it in the chat now. Have a quick look in the chat. And I'll give you just 30 seconds to click on that link in the chat. Please fill in the Sustainability Festival survey. It's literally 1 minute, 2 minutes, just so we get some feedback from you all about the events. Thanks, Iqbal. Thank you to everybody. Be good. Enjoy the weather over the rest of the weekend. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Gail. Thank you to everyone.
And enjoy the, as Gail has mentioned, said that enjoy the day.
Yes.
It is our business. We need to do all these projects, which we thought about, and what the future work we can do together. And it was just coming into my mind when I was talking to when I was listening to you. In our village, I was just thinking that we could make bags using cotton, and then it can be given to every household. Here we are. Plastic is, you don't use these. So that would be something Aquifer Foundations can take forward, and it's my recommendation to Farhat.
The ideas are flooding out now. It's fantastic.
Well, the thing is, Gail, it's onus on us all to take action. I think, we all have to take that responsibility if we want to save our planet, yeah. So thank you very much, everybody. And
thank you. Thank you. Enjoy, Rushna. Thank you. It was a very good presentations.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. It's been great, everyone. And let's take it next year. Let's see where we travel from here to global.
Which other countries?
Yes.